Perfect. All right, guys. This will be the first mindset call, separate from the other ones, because we've done a lot of calls on digestion and just habit building and kind of foundational level stuff. I want to do more mindset stuff because I know that there's a lot of people in the community right now that are in a fat loss phase, which is really cool to see. Seeing everyone just like make so much progress over time and just kind of sharing that energy in the community, which is really cool. So figured I'd kind of give you some perspective in terms of fat loss, whether it's being super overweight or just having a fat loss journey in general. So this one's more mindset related, but here we go. So right now, weight loss and obesity. I was supposed to do the bullet point, but it didn't work. So we're just don't read ahead. So I'm sure you've been able to understand that in your current state, before you started your fat loss journey, or even now, you've found yourself in this position just for a long period of time, and like compounding habits, right? The things that you're doing over time, you don't just wake up overnight and end up overweight or in a bad position with your health. It compounds. It's a compounding decision, compound of choices over time. So you may identify the situation as the problem, meaning like you're feeling that your situation being overweight is your problem, but in reality, it's the habits, the choices that you've made over time. And that's why I said earlier, a long period of time of compounding habits. Those habits are choices. And you can be radical and say that being overweight is a choice. And it can be a choice, but it's also your choice to change it. And we'll get into that. So if you identify the situation, your current situation, as a problem, that is a victim mentality, right? Like, it runs in my family. I just have been stuck like this for years. I beat myself up every time I go into the fat loss journey or fitness journey in general, whatever, right? Or that you feel like it's impossible to stay stuck to a plan or can't stay consistent to a plan. So this all comes from a mindset of helplessness and feeling like you're a victim of your own situation, when in reality you have the power to change it. And you're projecting outwards and you don't take accountability or ownership of your situation. Now, taking accountability, responsibility, and ownership of your full situation will help you understand that you have the power to change it. So there's more potential to self-sabotage. Why? The identity around the problem is the only real problem hurting their adherence. So there is an identity issue with your current situation. You have an identity of you staying stuck in this current situation, feeling helpless and victim mindset, that identity is so strong that it's preventing you from moving forward. And that's the real problem. It's not you being overweight, or it's not you being unhealthy, or it's not you feeling like you can't stick to a plan. It's the identity around that situation, or the identity around you trying to achieve those things. And that identity can be really, really deep rooted. And I'm sure Ash has talked about it in the past. And if you've been on her calls, she'll talk a lot about identity. So we need to focus on rewiring the internal change. How you speak is how you identify and how you act. Now, when you speak to yourself, this is why I tell you, this is why my favorite form of journaling is voice memoing, right? When you speak your negative emotions, your negative self-talk into existence, that's how you get to know your identity, the identities that have been holding you back. And you start to question, why did I say that? Why do I think this? So when you get out of your own head and you start to speak things into existence, it helps you connect the dots around identity, and it helps you understand why you act certain ways, or why you're not able to achieve certain things, or why your personality a little better. So the goal right here is to reframe. We want to reframe the problem. We want to reframe the challenge, and we want to reframe the opportunity. There we go. See my mouse. The problem, the challenge, and the opportunity. So an example would be, every time I'm around food, I always lose control. Pizza, ice cream, cereal, whatever. So this is a narrative, and you believe the food is the problem, but in reality, the food is not the problem. You're the problem that's taking responsibility. When you identify and when you find yourself around the food or the person or the environment, whatever the trigger is, your subconscious has created an identity around that narrative to keep you acting the same way you do as always. So what that means is, whenever you're around a trigger and you think the food is making you act a certain way, or a person is making you act a certain way, or the environment even. This is why people can't go back home, because they act a certain way. Like, you ever go back home and you're a completely different person and you act a certain way, you're like, why do I do that? So that's because your subconscious has created a strong identity around those things, those triggers. And that narrative, that story will continue playing out so long as you allow it. And when you allow it, that means that you're just letting your subconscious run your mind, which is what Ash has told us in the past. It's responsible for 99% of our actions, our subconscious, our identities, our stories that we tell ourselves. And that's because we're stuck in our own head. So when we give less power to the identity, you'll understand how to detach from it, basically. So you can also kind of, I'm going to use subconscious and ego interchangeably here, because they're kind of the same thing. Because the ego, you can kind of think of it as identity and versions of you that want you to stay stuck in the same situation, where subconscious is the thing, the 99.69% in your head that stores all the information, all the stories that you experience, basically. But I'm going to use them interchangeably just for the sake of simplicity. So our ego is attached to identity. Ego will always go back to what's familiar, as Ash has said in the past, and I've said to you guys before. Otherwise, if you don't lose control, that is a threat, unfamiliar. So, like I've said, when you want to choose change and you choose something different and it's unfamiliar, your ego will start to see that as a threat. Like, this is not what we know. Let's go back to comfortable. Let's go back, because this is too much change. I don't like it. And it sees that as a threat, whether it's even if it's good change or if it's bad change in general, right? That's why we build foundational steps, and we'll explain how we can get around this this threat, basically, that we've talked about. So how the subconscious is everything. If you plant a seed, the subconscious will always nurture and grow all the beliefs you give it, no matter what. You can repeat something in your head. You can tell a story about yourself. You can tell a lie about yourself. The more you do it and the more you plant that seed, your subconscious will start to believe it. And it's going to apply to negative things and positive things. So this is why affirmations and people rely on that a lot. So we'll get into that. But now you can think about your subconscious is a plant, pot, and soil. Whatever seed that you plant in the plant and the soil, don't care what seed is in it. Whether it's a good seed, whether it's a tree that gives life, or whether it's a vine and weeds that drain other plants and kill the garden. It doesn't matter. Your subconscious will give life to whatever seed that you plant in that soil. If you plant a deadly plant or a beautiful one, it's meant to be one that's meant to be small and wither away, or one that's meant to grow big and deep roots. The subconscious doesn't know the difference between toxic and thriving. It just knows whatever you give it. Experiences, environment, people, triggers, food, whatever stories that you constantly repeat, that's what it knows. That's what identity is. And people attach to identity very strongly. So trying to leave years of identity takes a lot of work. That's why when you jump onto a program or you try and jump on a fitness journey, you will face identity crisis and issues, obstacles through your journey several times. I'm still facing them. Hands up, like, been in this for 13 years. I still face it. It happens. It's not uncommon. So the language you tell yourself is part of the seed. That is the biggest one. Language is so strong, guys. Like, you have to understand that language. That's why, again, I'll go back to the voice memo, and I'll die by that. Voice memoing, when you speak your words into existence and you just let it flow, whenever there's a lot of shit on your mind, it helps you understand why you're thinking certain ways, because you're speaking into existence. Yeah, journaling works, and that works for a lot of people because they can see the words and then they understand and they reread it back and they're like, why did I say that? Why did I type that out? Or why did I write that out? So whatever works for you, choose a journaling prompt and style that works for you. But the language that you choose, in whether you're typing it or writing it or speaking it, super fucking important. Give me 1 second. So learning to watch and bring awareness to all your negative self-talk, body bashing, and your self-sabotage. When you learn to become the watcher and become aware of all the negative self-talk that you do, it helps you understand why the identity is so strong, why you have the potential to self-sabotage, why you start to connect the dots from your past and help you understand why you are a certain way now. So you'll learn to reframe the way you talk to yourself so you can see that you're the problem, not the situation. You are the cause, not the effect. Does that make sense? So you'll have to unlearn first before you relearn. Like when you jump into a program or when you jump into anything that becomes, when you jump into anything that is self-development or requires a lot of growth from you and discipline, you'll have to unlearn what you've done years of learning with your subconscious with. You'll have to unlearn all the identities. You'll have to unlearn all the habits, all the self-sabotage, and that takes time. You can't just wake up one day and like, holy shit, I know everything I need to know to get to where I need to be. No, it doesn't work that way. You need to unlearn slowly and pull out the bandages over time to help you understand how to break those cycles, but sustainably so it doesn't feel like a threat. Because if you were to wake up tomorrow cold turkey and you were a changed person, it would feel like a threat, and then you would just go back into old self-sabotage cycles. So I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I just don't want to be like this anymore. Have you ever said that to yourself where you're kind of going through the motions of things and you don't understand why you don't want to be a certain way, but you just don't want to be like that anymore? The subconscious does not recognize negatives. Ash has repeated this over and over again. I'll repeat this over and over again. That's why I put that question in the check-in towards the end that helps you understand how to reframe negative thoughts to positive ones, because I want you to understand that the subconscious, the universe, whatever you believe in, but the subconscious is real. Whenever you're asking for things or whenever you're trying to figure out why you're a certain way and you add a negation in there, a negative, a don't want equals a want, which is your true desire. So I don't want to be fat anymore. You're saying you want to be fat. I don't want to act like this anymore. You're saying you want to act that way. I don't want to be toxic anymore. You're saying you want to be toxic. It doesn't recognize negation, and that's something that a lot of people don't understand. So I'm still learning how to do it. It takes time. That's why voice memoing for me is always my shit. So you can understand when you say it and you're like, fuck, I caught it. You have to catch it in the moment and then relearn and then redo the whole sentence. It's like learning to write again. It's kind of, you have to stay consistent to it. So understand that. So your subconscious will soak that in though when you say those things. So does that make any sense? I know we're gonna get deeper. So if you have any questions, come off mute if you have any questions ever. But if not, I'll just continue. We'll continue.
No questions here.
Solid. Perfect. So to shift perspective. So here's a problem that I'm going to give you. The problem is I can't be around pizza without losing control and eating. It's my weakness. I'm sure you've heard that. It can be cookies, it can be pizza, it can be tacos, because tacos is mine. Just kidding. Cereal, whatever. So understanding, like I said earlier, the cause and effect. You are the cause, not the effect. You are the cause of said trigger, not the effect of the food being around you and becoming or going back into your self-sabotage cycle. So your brain frames it as, I am the effect of being unhinged, undisciplined, self-sabotaging, etc. when I am around pizza. So here's how you can reframe it. The first reframe we're going to allow some negation just to help you understand how to reframe it. So it's going to go something like this. I usually have a hard time being around pizza, but I'm determined to break the cycle. Now, the hard time being around pizza is the negation. Like I said earlier, it's okay to use some negative language here, but that's basically saying if you take the hard time out, if you take that negation out, it says I usually have a hard time being around pizza, but I'm determined to break that cycle. We'll come back to that. I didn't think about that part. So my bad. But anyway, it's okay to use some negative language here just to help you understand how to reframe it, to help you understand that you're making progress towards it. And the opportunity reframe would basically be for you to change the thought completely so you can help your subconscious absorb the new reframe, the new thought that you're trying to plant a seed into. This is going to be basically the new seed that you want to plant into your subconscious. So it's going to go, I am going to be able to go out, learn to control myself around pizza so I can have it and still achieve my goals. That's much more powerful, much more responsible, And you're planting a seed that allows you to be more disciplined and create a version of you that gets you away from the old identity that you've been struggling to break. So this is why planting the seed is the source of everything. Your subconscious is everything, like I said in the last slide. You can't reframe the problem as an opportunity first, though. So you can't break the cycle of going from problem to opportunity reframe. You have to go from the challenge, like challenge the thought, and then find an opportunity within that challenge to help you create a new thought, new seed that your subconscious is not going to absorb. You need to slowly progress so it can become adapted in your subconscious. So slowly, like I said, if you don't do it slowly, or if you don't try and stay consistent with it, it's going to be a threat to your subconscious, to your ego. It's going to bring you back. And then it's going to go back. You're going to go back to the problem. And that's not what we want. So your subconscious keeps track of everything, though, that you've experienced. And every time you're around pizza with old friends, with family, if your dad has eaten pizza in the past and has slammed a whole box and you don't understand why you can't control yourself around pizza, or there's certain foods in your past that you just see and certain people around you that when you hang out, you can't control yourself around, your subconscious keeps track of all of that, every single memory, all of it. It is literally billions, I don't know billions, but millions of bytes of data in your subconscious that are being held that you probably don't know how to access yet because you haven't dug that deep. Not many people know how to. I'm still working on it. Like, you ever see something? It's kind of like this. You ever wake up from a really strong dream? You're like, what the fuck happened? And you're just going around your day and you see something that kind of reminds you of the dream, and then you remember your dream immediately. That's what your subconscious is like, but with real life. So your subconscious will alter and delete data based on experience to help you stay in the same place. But dreams are dreams, so they're not like actually traumatic, but real life is more traumatic. So anyway, it's kind of like that. So breaking years of cycles takes consistent effort, though. Consistently working through the challenge reframe so you can understand how to break these things is going to help you become the version of you that you're trying to become. So any questions there? Because I know that can be a lot. Cool.
No questions here.
Okay, this is the foundational phase that I was talking about earlier. So stacking easy wins. This is our accumulation phase that I put everyone through. You've seen it in your Google Sheets. You've seen it when I talk about it, when I onboard you and you jump into the program. Accumulation. We accumulate small wins to compound in the direction that we're trying to go instead of going balls to the wall from the gate. There are very, very few people that can go balls to the wall from the gate, but they've had experience with doing very similar types of challenges in the past. So they understand how to go and do that from the get-go. When you're building foundation and you're trying to reprogram yourself, or you're trying to reprogram your subconscious and you're trying to break cycles, you have to slowly do it. Otherwise, again, it's a threat. And we don't like threats because we're going to go back to the old cycles and old habits that we don't want. So that's why we build small habits over time, small wins. So what that looks like is imagine if I handed you macros and told you from the start, lifting at RPE 9 to 10, week 1, or if I handed you macros and gave you specific fats, carbs, and protein to hit from the day 1. Like, that doesn't work. Very few people can do that, but it doesn't work for people that don't have experience. So we dial in technique first, we dial in range of motion, we dial in strength. How strong are you? How strong do you want to get? Mobility, nutritional habits, awareness, food quality, protein intake, water intake, slowly over time, right? Like weeks 1 through 3, I'm going to make you drink 2 to 3 bottles extra of water, or an extra 20 ounces of water to stack easy wins. I'm not going to make you drink a whole last gallon and a half or gallon every day, week 1. Not many people can do that. Or it can look like adding an extra meal. So instead of 3 meals, make it 4 meals a day consistently. It doesn't matter what it is, but just 4 meals. And then around weeks 4 through 6, just give or take, hypothetically, add an extra meal and make it 5. Walk an extra 30 minutes. You have an extra 30 minutes to walk. I'm not going to make you do 30 minutes, 50 minutes of cardio on the treadmill at the gym every day if you cannot at least walk an extra 30 minutes around your neighborhood. So And that can look like breaking it up too. It doesn't have to be one continuous cycle, just by the way. If you want to walk 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes midday, 10 minutes at night, however you want to break it up, as long as it adds up to 30 minutes or whatever that protocol looks like for you, then that's how it is. But every week, we basically add 1 to 2 small goals to adapt over time and help the subconscious become familiar to the changes. Remember, big changes is a threat to the subconscious and the ego. If you just, like we said, I don't want to repeat myself, but we want to stack small wins to help you gain momentum and snowball effect into the direction that we're trying to go. Because otherwise, threats, bad, go back to old cycles. So, dopamine is a double-edged sword. Dopamine's a fun topic. We can go deeper. This can probably be a whole call in itself, to be honest. But we can get cheap dopamine hits from scrolling, doom scrolling, eating shit foods, drinking, sex, old habits, things that provide very cheap dopamine, like even me chugging coffee sometimes, cheap dopamine, because it's a stimulant and your brain will be like, more, more. So there's cheap dopamine and then there's valuable dopamine. Now, as I drink more, it's actually tea, it's not coffee. We can get rewarding dopamine hits from stacking up small challenges and wins in the beginning to actively adhere to the plan. Like I said, when you get small wins and you start smacking those small wins every day and you win the day, I like to call it just winning the day. Like, how did you win the day today? How did you win in a day? How did you win today so that it feels like you're progressing towards the direction that we're trying to go? That way, you can actively adhere more to the plan and to the program, because otherwise it feels like you're ripping, what's that term? You're ripping bandages off of, I can't remember the term. But dopamine is basically the reward system for achievement, and it's something that our human brain is hardwired to thrive on. You can't break years and millions of millennia. You can't break millennia of hardwired human subconscious chemicals, right? Dopamine is just how we thrive chemically in our brain. So again, creating small wins on a daily basis is going to help you create dopamine hits and learn to use challenge as a dopamine, right? Like when you no longer feel challenged at the gym, for example, it's good to challenge yourself with more weight, more reps, longer, spending longer in the gym, going slower in the rep, whatever it is, right? Adding an extra layer of challenge so you can get a dopamine hit from that. That's how you progress. Instead of like, let me scroll for an extra 10 minutes at the gym and work out the same that I have been. And that doesn't, you don't see any progress from that. So anyway, dopamine. So let's talk about self-sabotage a little bit. You will face self-sabotage at least once in any challenge. The bigger the challenge, the more the self-sabotage. It's just inevitable. That's why plenty of businesses fail. That's why people starting their fitness journey fail. That's why people that want to have big goals in life and they don't know how to actually achieve them because of identities, then they struggle. So you can think of this as the devil on your shoulder and the angel on the other, or your ego slash subconscious pulling you back to old habits because it's unfamiliar and threatening, right? You want to be able to understand that self-sabotage is just an older version of you pulling you back into old habits to keep you safe, right? And that's the whole purpose of, I don't know if I mentioned that earlier, but the ego sees it as a threat because it's trying to keep you safe. So it's like a double-edged sword too. It's trying to keep you safe and comfortable. So a few questions that you can ask yourself for self-sabotage is, have you ever been around a trigger food while you were a couple weeks into your fat loss journey? And then, no, this is not a couple questions. I'm sorry. I reframed that wrong. This is just a few questions, like a question that is prolonged, and you can ask yourself and see if you relate. So let me know if you relate in the chat. That way you can just type it out. Have you ever felt you've been around a trigger food while you were around have you ever been around a trigger food while you were a couple weeks into your fat loss journey and then you black out and you eat an entire box of Oreos, let's say 10 weeks into your fat loss journey or 5 weeks in, whatever, it doesn't matter, even though you weren't hungry and you can't explain why? Usually the subconscious wiring is deep, and becoming aware that you're eating the Oreos is only step one. Like, you're mid Oreos and you're like, fuck, I already ate 3. I might as well eat 5. Fuck, I already ate a whole row. I might as well eat the second row. Oh, I ate the second row. I might as well just slam down some milk. It goes on, and becoming aware of that cycle and giving into it is only step 1. Like, the fact that I'm doing this is only step 1. So if you're making progress in your fat loss journey and your subconscious only knows the identities of being overweight or unworthy or unable to finish anything or always feeling like you're bloated, then you're going to go back to the identity. That's why I said you're going to face these challenges, identity challenges, over and over and over again. So becoming aware is only step 1. We don't want to become toxically aware. We don't want to just become aware and not do anything about it. That's why we get help. So self-sabotage, how do we break that cycle? So here's a couple techniques that I've used with other clients in the past. This is my favorite one. This is what I do. It's the easiest and it's the most effective, at least. So one of the techniques that I use is you eat a trigger food every day until it loses its power. So you eat a quarter to half of the portion size every day to make it lose its power. For example, my trigger food is cereal, as you all know. I have 1 serving instead of my 3 to 4 servings that I use to self-sabotage with. So 1 serving is a quarter of 4 servings because I can slam a mixing bowl of cereal, not a thought, if I allow myself to. And I challenge myself consistently. So I have those trigger foods, but the reason this works is because now you don't have a scarcity mindset around the food anymore. You're no longer saying, I don't have to wait until the weekend or 2 weeks or until my diet break or until my refeed or until whatever to get this food. You just have it every single day. If it's pizza, if it's ice cream, if it's whatever, I guarantee you, if you eat a slice of pizza instead of the half of the box or the whole box that you slam, I'm not saying anyone does, then you're going to get tired of it. You'll start to feel like bloated, like this cheese is fucking me up, or this grease is not feeling great in my stomach. Whatever it is, right? You'll start to develop an intolerance to it. Sorry, you'll start to develop a tolerance to it. You'll start to develop a adherence to it that helps you understand this food is just food. That's losing its power. And that helps you detach to some extent from all identities of feeling unworthy to around those trigger foods. All identities around the trigger foods feeling like that food is the reason why I'm overweight type of thing. So that's one technique. The other technique I like to do is go to the grocery store after a hearty meal. Don't go hungry. Go to the grocery store after a hearty meal. Don't go hungry. If you go hungry, you will make the worst choices. I guarantee you. It's the first mistake. The first mistake that you make is at the grocery store. All the trigger foods, quote unquote, that you have in your pantry right now or in your house are because you made the decision at the grocery store. That is the first place that you make the mistake. And a lot of people will subconsciously just make that mistake, put it in their cart and be like, okay, whatever. And they check out and they're like, why? How did that food get in there? You put it there. So if it's in your cart and you know you'll slam all those Oreos, why are they in your cart? So this is what's the word? This point and technique is contradictory to the first one because the first one makes you get that trigger food, put it into your cart with the intention of only having half the serving size or according with serving size. If you can't control yourself whatsoever, then we can't do that. So this is the contradictory version where we just don't get the food at all and don't put it in our environment at all. So most likely when you go to the grocery store hungry and you look, everything looks good. You probably forgot your protein source too, and you just got all the snacks and you got maybe a few fruits. And yeah, so if you don't get it at the grocery store, you eliminate it being in your home, on your shelf, on your plate, and in your mouth. Very simple. It's super simple. You just eliminate it from your grocery store list and you don't go hungry. Just that's the biggest thing. Don't go hungry. Have a hearty meal. Don't have pizza and then go to the grocery store for a hearty meal. This will allow you to stack wins being in an environment that sets you up for success. This is huge. I preach being in an environment that sets you up for success because when I was in prep, for example, bodybuilding prep, I had to have foods around me and be in certain environments. I couldn't go out. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't like be in and out with friends. I went out with friends once, but I had to bring my own meal, and just being around that environment, I was like, fuck, this is really hard. It's hard being in those environments where you're triggered to want to eat foods or have a beer or have a burger, whatever it is. So being in an environment that sets you up for success is super fucking important. That's why I didn't go out. I only went out once, and even then it was hard. And well, that's a lie. I went out twice, but I didn't. I controlled myself all those times, but they were still fucking hard. So being in an environment that's going to help you prevent you from making those decisions subconsciously will prevent you from even getting into that cycle again in the first place. And when it happens, obviously there's a cycle of shame and guilt, and that can also happen. And that's for another call. But that's when you also reach out to me and be like, hey, this happened. How can we go about this? Right. And usually what I'm going to tell you is jump back on the protocol. Just jump back on. You didn't regress. You didn't lose 2 weeks of progress, a month of progress. You just had a moment. You're aware of it now. Now let's make the change moving forward. Is just jump back on the protocol. Oh, you forgot your steps for the week? Okay, whatever. Jump back on the protocol. Oh, you didn't track for the week? Okay, whatever. Jump back on your protocol. You didn't train? Jump back on the protocol. It's going to be a blip. But the more you actively try and make the change over time, it'll outweigh, the wins will outweigh the negatives. So that was a tangent there, but that was technique 2. Technique 3, last one. Now this one's rough. I'll explain why, but yeah. So this one's called the negative association. I've done this a couple times. Very hard. I don't know. I'll explain and then we'll go into it. So this one's called a negative association. You take one day, one weekend or whatever, one day though, and you eat all the junk food in your home, like all of it, until you get sick, and until you feel like complete trash. Like I want you to eat everything that triggers you all at once, not in one sitting, but in one day. So this is my emergency use only technique. Now this can be triggering if you have an eating disorder or if you have a bad history of relationships with food. And this can be triggering in general because it can set you off. But the reason I do it is because it's similar to getting shit-faced drunk and blacking out, texting your ex, and sleeping with a 2 that you thought was an 11, because I bet that you're not going to be drinking for the next 3 to 4 months, right? Like that experience was so horrible that you're not going to be drinking for the next 3 to 4 months, at least for me. Not that I've done that. I'm just saying. But I've gotten shit-faced drunk and texted my ex. I haven't slept with 2 though. So it's that type of level where you want to slam that food and experience the negative effects on a level 10, 11, 12. So that way you're like, I never want to feel like that again. And that's the negative association part. It's kind of like, unfortunately, it's like training your dog, right? Where you're like, don't do that thing because you will get, I give my dog salsa when she does something bad because salsa is like a form. I've never hit dogs or anything. I'm just saying this, I use salsa. So it's like they do the thing and you give them the negative association and they're like, I'm never doing that again. Same thing. Brain works the same way. Negative dopamine, that if that's a thing, or negative association, negative dopamine. No, never mind. Your body is going to crave whole food, whole protein, whole sources of carbs and fats after you do that, right? You will have that now, that whole meal, all those foods that restore your body back to normal levels is going to be the positive association compared to the negative one that you just experienced, because you're so far on the scale, on the teeter-totter, where you're trying to experience balance and whatever, but reality is you need to experience the full negative effects of whatever you're doing and then experience the full positive effects for you to really see the changes. So this is one way, but again, this can be triggering if you do it repeatedly. It will not heal your relationship with food. Like, don't allow this to be a reason. Like, for example, if I can't get over cereal and I have to slam the entire box of cereal because I used to, not gonna lie, I used to, but now I don't. But anyway, this doesn't give me the excuse to do it repeatedly every weekend, one day out of the weekend, to slam a whole box of cereal or a whole thing of Oreos or a whole box of cookies, whatever it is. It doesn't give me the excuse to try and like fix myself. That's why this is triggering. And this is why it's an emergency use only, because it can be like that dopamine can end up being a positive dopamine if you don't do this correctly. So very not suggested. I will never suggest this to any client if all the other techniques haven't worked. And that usually takes a lot. Like I'm usually gonna milk the other techniques first in every way possible before we ever touch this. Because even for me, this is triggering. So anyway, the matrix. Our perception of a reality is a projection. So let me go back. Hold on. The matrix. Does anyone have any questions about those techniques? You can type it in the chat if you want.
No, sir.
Solid. Give me 1 second. Okay. So the Matrix. We've all seen the movie. It's a beautiful movie. Rewatch it if you haven't. Our perception of reality is a perception. Sorry. Our perception of reality is a projection of the way we personalize and process information. Our experiences that we take in, our subconscious stores them, gathers all that data, and then personalizes it to the way that you create that identity. Now, our reality, this is a true fact, our reality is only 0.006 of what's actually going on in the world, our conscious mind, right? We are consciously seeing and experiencing and feeling and doing all these things, but we're only experiencing 0.006% of the entire world. So consciously, at least. The other 99.994% is filtered into the subconscious mind. What does that mean? So your subconscious is literally an endless sponge. It just doesn't stop soaking up information, and it holds so much data and information that it creates a personalization for your identity. And the way it does that is it has three choices whenever it absorbs information. We either delete, distort, or generalize the information. Like I said earlier, you have millions of bytes of data. So choosing, and that's why it's hard to remember certain memories, like the dream example that I gave you. So when it comes down to trying to remember certain memories from your childhood or from your teenage years or whatever it is, your subconscious is going to delete, distort, or generalize that data to keep you safe. That is it. It is that simple. So it'll delete memories, it'll distort memories, it'll generalize memories to keep you safe. And it's hard to access them. That's the hard part. So when you start to learn to access them, though, it requires practices that Ash has preached, I preach: meditation, mindfulness, journaling, and bringing those memories and thoughts up into existence so you understand how to connect the dots. So information comes in and it is interpreted based off several variables: time, mood, decisions, beliefs, language, values, and identity. Which do you think is most important? It sucks because this slide was supposed to be bullet point by bullet point, and identity was going to be, I was going to ask you yet. So obviously it's identity. So identity is the strongest one. You can also say language is also the strongest one because language creates identity, and beliefs are the thoughts that create your language, that create that identity. So moving on. Oops. So identity is the strongest filter of our reality. As the man thinketh, so is he. That was the bottom half of the beginning title of the slide or this presentation. So if we identify as unworthy, we will self-sabotage. If we identify as unmotivated, we will not stick to a plan. Whatever your identity is, you will continue to live in that identity as long as you think it continuously, right? And it takes time to, I'm not saying like tomorrow, don't think it. You have to slowly work the new thoughts in, the challenge reframe thoughts, and the opportunity reframe thoughts over time. So let's dig a little deeper into identity. 1 second. So identity is created by you. I want you to sink that in. Identity is created by you. Whatever identity you have, your mom didn't create it, your dad didn't create it, your environment didn't create it. They influenced it. Very, very different. You chose to stick to that mold because influence and pressure and all these things, right? Pressure creates diamonds, and now you're the diamond, but whatever. That was just an analogy, not diamond in a good way or a bad way. Diamond as that's your identity. So anyway, identity is created by you. You have been molded by your environment, people, and experiences, and you chose to allow those people to create your identity. No, follow bullet point by bullet point, because I'm going to try and make a point here. So if identity is created by you, and our perception of reality based on your current or your past identity is merely a projection based on personally filtered data, like I said in the last slide. We go here. Perception of reality is a projection of the way we personalize and process information, right? So if that's true, and is merely a projection based on personally filtered data into the subconscious and the conscious mind, but mostly the subconscious, then, and the way we personalize filtered data is based off personal belief systems and identity and language and memory, right? That means that our reality is personal. The reality that you experience is you experiencing it through identity, through these experiences, through these memories, through this data, through this belief system that you've ingrained into yourself. And you're like, this is how things are. So it's personal to you. That's why you have certain belief systems, and that's why you have all these things. That's why you believe, for example, like I said earlier about the dog, hitting dogs is bad. I learned that. Well, I used to think that hitting dogs was good because I saw it from my dad, and that's how he raised dogs. Like, that's how you teach dogs. And then I learned over time that that's not how I want to identify. I don't think that hitting dogs is a good thing. So I chose to change it. And when I got my dog, that's why I tell her, I'm going to give you spicy. And I give her sriracha or Tabasco or whatever I got when she does something bad or that I don't want her to do, the negative association. So that was me creating a different identity of the version of the Mike, the trainer, Mike, the dog trainer, that I wanted to be to raise my dog differently. And whenever my dad comes around my dog, he still has that identity. So I had to help him unlearn those things so he can teach and he can handle my dog the way that I want my dog to be handled. So that's why reality is personal. I don't know if that makes sense, but that was basically like me absorbing personally filtered data through the personal belief system that I used to have, and that identity that I used to have, and that memory that I used to have. So when I experience other owners hitting dogs or treating their dogs a certain way, it's like beforehand it used to be good, and now it's like that person's a bad person now. So anyway, that was a tangent, but that was just an example. So now that we understand that reality is personal, reality is subjective to the individual. It is opinionated to the individual. So that means that if a reality is subjective, that means we can change it because it is not objective. Reality is not set in stone. We are just experiencing it through a filter, through a single filter of the millions of filters that there are. And you get to choose whatever filter you want to choose it. You get to choose whatever good filter, bad filter, neutral filter identity that you want to be, because you can change it. So does that make sense? Does that whole logic make sense? Because this is part of the matrix. Okay. I'm going to assume it does. And then I just blew your minds. Okay. So here's the shift. Give me one more second. I'm so sorry. I thought this call was going to be like 10 minutes. It's going to be a lot longer. Or I thought it was going to be like 40 minutes, but okay. So the shift. Sorry. At the beginning of your health journey, your goals may seem insurmountable, dark, sad, unworthy. You'll feel like the guy on the left of this diagram. And the reason is because you don't know, you're so stuck in identity that that's all you know. You want to change your perspective like the guy on the right. How do we do that? You take responsibility for everything, number one, and you become aware of your self-sabotage, but not toxically aware, because that's when people know that they should change and they don't do jack shit to actually change it. That's the worst type of person. I know I should quit smoking cigarettes, but I just don't know how. I know I should lose weight, but I just don't know how. I should stop drinking, but I just don't know how. These are the people that just are toxically aware of their negative habit, but they're so stuck in identity and it's so deeply rooted, and they don't have any help or environment or people or positive triggers to break that. So, and the third thing is to stack small wins every day, no matter how small, every single day. These can look like non-negotiables, like your water intake, your protein intake, amount of meals that you have, walking, waking up on time, staying productive with all your personal goals outside of fitness, avoiding or small portion size trigger foods, like we mentioned with the with the half portion size food, or avoiding it at the grocery store, and get sleep. That's the biggest one. So this is a shift that you have to understand how to, these are things that tangible that you can do on a daily basis that can help you make the shift to go from the guy on the left to go and look like the guy on the right. So no, that's it. Perfect timing. 12 o'clock. Okay. That's it, guys. I hope I blew your mind. I hope you guys can come off mute if you want, or I'll stop sharing my screen. Let me know if you have any questions. Or go back to any slides I can if you need me to.
That's some really, really good stuff, Mike. Um,
Thanks, bro.
I know that like before I started my fitness journey with you, like I've listened to like Jim Rohn and a couple other guys that talk about like how we the things that we say affect like the outcome or how we project who we are. Because I
Yeah.
remember like I would wish things were easier, but Jim Rohn would say wish you were better. So I like the things that he said. They're very very helpful things. A lot of this stuff does resonate with me. So really really good stuff.
Appreciate it. I'm glad it resonated. I mean, again, it's a lot to take in at first. So that's why I'm saying if you I'm probably gonna repeat a lot of things as we go on our calls. And when I see things that kind of stand out, I'll call them out. But I'll repeat them over and over again to help you remember the call. And obviously, I'm going to post the recording soon, so you'll get that. But yeah, I'm glad it resonated, bro.
I have a question.
Yeah, bro. What's up?
About the technique one for how to bridge I'm sorry, how to bridge the cycle of self sabotage.
Mm-hmm.
Eat the trigger food every day until it loses power.
Mm-hmm.
When you said that, that made me think of, is that why you shouldn't eat the same, like for meal prep? Is that why you shouldn't eat the same meal every day? Let's say, for example, you meal prep and the only thing you make for the whole week is chicken and rice. You said that could get boring, and I was wondering if that is also a form of self sabotage because it could take and make you feel miserable, and you want to break it off and stop being your diet.
Yeah, that's fair. That's very fair. That's very valid. I like that question. So, chicken and rice, here's the first thing. Chicken and rice is very hard to overeat. The trigger food is more around foods that you subconsciously and just can't stop eating. It goes back to this slide where it's like the thing of Oreos, where you've ever been around a trigger food while you were a couple weeks into your fat loss journey, and then you just black out and then you eat whatever, whether it's chips or Oreos or whatever that is so just tasty. It can be like barbecue meat, whatever it is, it's that food that you just like, fuck, I just ate 6,000 calories and I don't know how type of thing. It's hard to do that with chicken and rice. But your second point is very valid, because chicken and rice, meal prepping every single meal will get boring. And that's what puts people into the cycle like, I deserve a break. I'm going to go cheat. And then they go into their cheat meal, which I never like calling it a cheat meal because cheat meal is negative connotation. But they go into that cycle where they're like, okay, I'm going to go slam a box of pizza. So that's why I also preach like, this is why this is my favorite one. I can have chicken and rice for like 2 meals out of the day, have my trigger food half portion size for my other meal with like a source of protein on the side, which is cereal, and I'll usually have an omelet for breakfast after my workout, and then chicken and rice and whole food for the rest of the day. I still do it. So
So it all comes down to portion control.
portion control and balance. This is why this is my favorite one, because I still use it on a daily basis. If I were to eat bland ass omelets and bland food every day, which I don't, but I'm saying if I did, I would want to slam a whole mixing bowl of cereal or eat a whole box of donuts on the weekend. So yes, exactly. It comes down to portion sizes and having the whole food outweigh your trigger food. Like, it doesn't make sense to only have one meal of chicken and rice and then your other meal be your trigger food with the half portion trigger food and whatever you have with it, because then it's just 1-on-1, right? You need to have like 2 or 3 whole meals so your trigger food, it doesn't overpower the amount of progress that you're trying to make. Does that make sense?
Yes. I was just wondering, like, chicken advice was just the first example that came to my head.
Yeah. No, that makes sense, dude. I totally get it because I used to be exactly like that. Like I used to think you have to eat oatmeal for breakfast and toast and peanut butter, and then you have to eat chicken and rice, and then you have to eat only potatoes and chicken and a salad for dinner. Like that used to be me. And then the weekends I used to splurge. It used to be fucking horrible. Cereal and donuts and burgers and pizza and lots of laxatives to poop it all out. Like it used to be horrible, dude. So it comes down to portion sizes with the trigger foods. So I use this every day. This is why we preach flexible dieting, to have the trigger food and have whatever you want, but with guidelines and portion sizes. Otherwise, flexible dieting is bullshit. And if you treat it incorrectly, because there are scientists in the field that like, I use flexible dieting and I ate Twinkies for a month and lost weight. Like, of course you did, but your gut health is horrible. Your relationship with food is horrible, and you didn't portion size accordingly, and you were just in a calorie deficit because Twinkies, like 3 or 4 Twinkies a day, doesn't really do much for you in terms of calories. So, but yeah, does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool. Good question, dude. I like that. Yeah, that's big. Do you have a trigger food?
Pringles.
What is it?
Pringles. It's
Say what?
Pringles.
I think he said Pringles.
Yes.
Pringles. Okay, I was like chips. Okay, you can say just chips.
Mm.
Pringles. Okay, so you can slam a whole thing of Pringles and feel like, holy shit, I just think you'll black out, basically.
Yeah, but recently, what I'll do if I haven't, I take a cover out and get the rest, the rest of the can to my nephew.
Okay,
I
nice.
give him away instead of eating the whole thing.
There you go. That's good. Share with a friend. I forgot to put. That's a good point. That's a good one. I like that. Be around people that will help you share, instead of going to the donut store yourself and having the whole thing by yourself. Share it with a friend. Share 6 with a friend and share. That's what I would do. That's a good one. I like that point. It's good. Yeah. You guys have any other questions? Any other reflections? I thought I'll put on another call in a minute, but
No, I'm good.
I'm good.
cool. Well, thank you guys for being here. Usually I know there'd be more people, but it's okay. They'll get the recording. They missed out on the first mindset call, so it sucks on them. But yeah,
Can you let me know when you post this one, or can you put it on like one of the chats so that way I can share it to some people, because I feel like a lot of this stuff is good for like people that really haven't heard of the restructuring of like the way they say things to project, all the stuff. Like I want to share it to like friends and family.
Okay. Yeah, dude. I'll post it. Yeah. I need to post the other one, so I'm probably going to schedule the last call and this call. I'm going to schedule them this week. I'll schedule them today to post at some time during the week. But yeah, I'm just going to post them as is because, yeah, apparently Raw is better. Or have you guys watched the other recordings on YouTube?
I have.
You have? Thank you, dude. Oh, that's awesome. Yay. Do you like it kind of unedited, or have you ever, there's other ones that are edited in there? I don't know if you watched either.
No, I just watched them, but especially the ones I missed, and it's very helpful. I like how blah. I'm sorry, I'm so tired.
You're good. You're good.
I just like how they are. They're fine.
Okay, cool. I'll post them just like this then, and just let people kind of use it as a class type of call. But yeah, dude, I'll post them soon, and then I'll post them in the chat.
Sounds good, Mike.
All right, guys. I'll let you have the rest of your Sunday, and blow it up in the chat and tell everyone that they missed out. Okay, bye, bros. I'll see you guys later.
See you
Have a good
again.
week, guys. See
Have a
you
good
later.
day. See you.